For many years, Ethiopia's military depended on foreign suppliers for its weapons and ammunition. Heavy munitions, artillery shells, and bullets were imported, leaving the nation vulnerable to the whims of international arms dealers. Ethiopia's sovereignty and security often rested in the hands of external forces. But today, things are changing. Deep within Ethiopia's industrial heartland, the sound of machinery fills the air, sparks fly, and robotic arms move with precision. A quiet revolution is unfolding not through protests or political speeches, but through action and innovation. Ethiopia is no longer just a buyer of weapons, it's becoming a producer. And for the first time, it has started exporting ammunition to the international market. This transformation didn't happen overnight. So how did it all come to be? Let's take a closer look. For much of its modern history, Ethiopia's military relied on foreign powers to arm its forces. Colonial legacies, shifting alliances, and geopolitical interference meant that the availability of weapons was often controlled by foreign governments. But in 1987, a pivotal decision was made, one that would shape the future in ways no one had imagined at the time. That decision led to the creation of the Hamiko Ammunition Engineering Complex, a facility that would eventually become one of Ethiopia's most crucial defense assets. Its establishment was not a random event. It emerged during the Cold War, when Ethiopia's military alliances were constantly shifting. Engineers from North Korea and the Soviet Union played a vital role in setting up the country's first major ammunition manufacturing facility. Initially, its focus was limited, mainly producing small-caliber bullets for infantry weapons. It was designed to reduce dependency on imports rather than eliminate it entirely. But the world changed. The Soviet Union collapsed, and the once reliable foreign military support dried up. Ethiopia faced a new reality, where self-reliance was no longer just an option, but a necessity. Despite limited outside assistance, the Hamiko complex began to evolve. It transformed from a simple bullet factory to a sophisticated production hub, capable of manufacturing everything from sniper rounds to anti-aircraft ammunition. This transformation wasn't just about increasing production, it was about strategy. Ethiopian leaders knew that ammunition production had to be more than just another industry. It had to be precise, reliable, and sustainable. They expanded the facility with new divisions, each specializing in specific ammunition types and calibers. Engineers underwent training in advanced metallurgy and ballistics, ensuring not just volume but quality and consistency. By the early 2000s, Hamiko had grown into one of East Africa's largest military production centers, operating mostly under the radar. Years of quiet investment had built a reliable supply chain to sustain Ethiopia's armed forces. Yet, the complex wasn't ready to compete on the global stage until modern automation changed the game. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, Hamiko took a bold leap forward by integrating state-of-the-art automation and robotics. The introduction of computer-controlled precision machining and automated loading systems revolutionized production. Not only did output skyrocket, but quality and uniformity improved to meet international standards. With these innovations, millions of rounds could be produced efficiently and consistently, no more reliance on outdated, labor-intensive methods. But Hamiko's evolution wasn't just about making ammunition. One of its most underrated achievements is the way it diversified into civilian metal manufacturing. While defense remains the primary focus, metallurgical breakthroughs at Hamiko have paved the way for industrial applications. From producing specialized alloys to crafting precision-milled metal parts for construction and engineering, the facility has become economically beneficial beyond just defense production. For years, Defense analysts knew about Ethiopia's growing ammunition capabilities, but it wasn't widely publicized. Now, however, Ethiopia is no longer keeping it a secret. The once guarded Hamiko complex is now a source of national pride, an emblem of Ethiopia's resilience and determination to forge its own path. The nation is proudly embracing its defense sector as a symbol of strength and self-sufficiency, showing that it no longer needs to seek foreign approval to secure its military needs. But the story doesn't end there. The ultimate vision was never just about producing ammunition for domestic use. Over the past few months, a new chapter has begun, one that positions Ethiopia not just as a producer, but as a global supplier. Ethiopia's defense industry has reached a point where it is not just sustaining its military, but also selling ammunition on the international market. Ethiopia's push for weapon manufacturing is not just about self-defense, it is also about regional influence. In the Horn of Africa, where geopolitical tensions are common, the ability to produce weapons domestically enhances the country's strategic autonomy. It also positions Ethiopia as a potential supplier to neighboring nations seeking reliable and affordable defense solutions. This approach aligns with a broader African ambition to reduce reliance on foreign military equipment. Leaders like Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso have also championed the idea of African self-sufficiency and innovation. Traore's visionary leadership in Burkina Faso has inspired many to rethink Africa's dependence on external powers, particularly in critical sectors like defense. Ethiopia's strides in weapon manufacturing echo this spirit of sovereignty and innovation. For many years, Ethiopia's munitions industry operated quietly behind closed doors, focusing solely on equipping its own armed forces. The primary goal was to manufacture bullets, store artillery shells, and maintain a steady supply of ammunition to safeguard national security. That was the full extent of its mission. But now, a remarkable transformation has taken place. Ethiopia's military might no longer rest solely on using ammunition. It has become a commodity. The nation has shifted from being just a consumer to a producer and exporter. In just 3 months, Ethiopia has secured contracts worth over $30 million for ammunition sales. This isn't speculation or theory, it's reality, happening right now. What was once purely a domestic operation has now captured global attention. Ethiopia has boldly stepped into the international arms trade, not as a dependent buyer, but as a competitive supplier. The world took notice when the first shipments of Ethiopian-made ammunition crossed national borders not just as a business move, but as a statement of independence and capability. The destinations of these shipments are closely guarded secrets, as is typical in the arms trade. However, whispers within defense circles suggest that Ethiopian ammunition is now finding its way to multiple continents. Countries in the Middle East that urgently need vast amounts of ammunition, African nations looking to equip their military forces, and even potential buyers from Asia are all seeking reliable and affordable supplies. Ethiopia, with its upgraded production capabilities, is perfectly positioned to meet this demand. This sudden leap into exporting arms wasn't a coincidence. It was the result of global dynamics creating an opportunity that Ethiopia seized. Around the world, military supply chains are being stretched thin. Traditional arms producers, whether from the US, Russia, or Europe, are dealing with conflicts, political disputes, and disruptions in production. Countries that once relied on these superpowers for ammunition are now looking elsewhere for dependable and cost-effective options. Ethiopia has stepped in to fill this gap, offering a consistent supply of ammunition without the baggage of political interference, bureaucratic hurdles, or sky-high prices. But there's more to this story than just affordability. Autonomy and independence are equally crucial. Many of the buyers turning to Ethiopia have faced long-standing arms embargoes, political obstacles, or diplomatic pressure when trying to purchase from traditional suppliers. Ethiopia provides them with an alternative, a source free from external meddling or restrictive policies. But exporting arms is not as straightforward as selling coffee or textiles. It demands a highly specialized infrastructure, reliable logistics networks for handling sensitive cargo, stringent security protocols to ensure safe and confidential transportation, and international agreements that permit the legal movement of munitions across borders. Ethiopia has taken decisive steps to streamline this process, setting up an effective system that guarantees swift and secure deliveries to clients. Thanks to its strategic location near the port of Djibouti, Ethiopia can dispatch shipments through sea routes with minimal delays. Ongoing negotiations for direct military trade agreements are being pursued to ensure that ammunition exports are not hindered by the same bureaucratic slowdowns that plague other arms-producing nations. At the heart of this transformation is the newly upgraded Hamiko Ammunition Engineering Complex. The facility has adopted cutting-edge robotic precision production, significantly boosting output and maintaining consistent quality. This modernization enables Ethiopia to manufacture millions of rounds that meet international military standards, positioning itself as a reliable supplier on the global stage. However, stepping into the global arms market brings new challenges. Every exporter, as it disrupts a market traditionally dominated by Western and Eastern giants. The international arms trade is a tightly controlled sector, and new players are not often welcomed with open arms. Ethiopia's entry into this space challenges the status quo, signaling that Africa is no longer just a consumer of global arms, but a producer with the capability to meet both domestic and international demands. The path ahead won't be easy, but Ethiopia's bold move to take control of its own defense production and export capabilities marks a new chapter in the nation's story, one of resilience, independence, and ambition. Ethiopia's emergence as an arms exporter is already raising eyebrows among well-established weapons manufacturers. If the country continues to expand its output and attract more international customers, it's likely to face diplomatic pressure to curb its exports. Some Western nations, in particular, may perceive Ethiopia's growing presence in the arms trade as a threat to their economic interests and geopolitical influence in Africa. However, this shift could also strengthen Ethiopia's ties with other developing military economies, particularly in Asia and Africa. Some nations might see Ethiopia not just as a supplier of ammunition, but as a strategic partner in the Global South's quest for defense independence. If the current trajectory continues, Ethiopia may soon go beyond producing ammunition and move into manufacturing armored vehicles, advanced weapon systems, and even cutting-edge defense technologies. But stepping onto the global arms stage comes with its own challenges. One of the biggest hurdles will be maintaining production capacity without overstretching resources. Expanding too rapidly without securing sustainable customer bases and reliable production lines could lead to supply shortages or lapses in quality control. Building long-term partnerships and repeat business will be crucial, not just one-time deals, but consistent, large-scale contracts that keep the industry thriving. Another significant challenge will be navigating the geopolitical landscape. The global arms trade is dominated by powerful players who are not keen on competition, especially from a rising African nation. Ethiopia's leadership will need to be prepared for potential political and economic pushback, as other countries may try to undermine its progress or impose restrictions on its exports. Yet, one thing is clear: Ethiopia has already made its mark. The first shipments have crossed the borders, the first contracts have been secured, and the first profits have been earned. This is not just a trial run, it's the real deal. Ethiopia is no longer just an arms-producing country, it's now an arms-exporting power. This bold move raises a critical question. What does this mean for Africa as a whole? For decades, Africa's military landscape has been defined by dependence on foreign arms suppliers. Whether from the West, Russia, or China, the arms trade was always a game dominated by superpowers, with African nations merely being customers caught up in deals that often came with political strings attached. Now, Ethiopia is breaking that pattern. No longer just a buyer, it has become a seller. This change is more than economic, it's a political statement. Ethiopia is beginning to alter the balance of military power on the continent, one bullet at a time. For too long, African nations have been trapped in a cycle of dependency, where weapon procurement often meant dealing with foreign interests, facing delays, or even outright refusals despite paying hefty sums. Ethiopia's ammunition industry is challenging that dynamic. For the first time, an African nation is stepping up as a reliable supplier of military-grade ammunition, not only for its own forces, but for other countries too. Leadership figures like Captain Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso exemplify how determination and a clear vision can transform a nation's defense posture. Ethiopia, with its ambitious projects and strategic foresight, is poised to secure its place as a key military power in the region. If Ethiopia continues on this path, it might inspire other African nations to rethink their defense strategies. Instead of looking to the US, Russia, or Europe for military hardware, they could start building their own industries, reducing reliance on external powers. Ethiopia's breakthrough could spark a larger continental movement toward defense self-sufficiency. But Ethiopia's rise as a global arms exporter isn't happening in isolation. Every bullet it ships is one less that traditional suppliers can sell. For the global arms giants, this development is unwelcome news. For decades, African defense contracts have been a lucrative market for Western, Russian, and even Chinese manufacturers. These countries have built networks of influence and secured long-term contracts, positioning themselves as the go-to suppliers for African governments. Ethiopia's success could disrupt that dominance. Ammunition may be just the beginning, but it could lead to a major shift. If Ethiopia proves itself as a reliable and efficient supplier, what's stopping other African countries from following suit? This isn't just an economic rise, it's a challenge to the status quo. And history has shown that powerful nations don't take kindly to threats to their economic interests. There's a real possibility that Ethiopia may face diplomatic pressure to scale back its exports. International bodies might even push for stricter regulations, targeting African arms producers to maintain control over the global arms market. But Ethiopia seems determined to defy that trend. As the world watches the flow of Ethiopian-made ammunition to international markets, a quiet transformation is also taking place within the country. The Ethiopian military is evolving beyond just a fighting force, it's becoming a cornerstone of industrial might. In modern warfare, an army is only as strong as its supply chain. Wars aren't just won on the battlefield, they're won through logistics, steady supplies, and the ability to sustain operations over time. Ethiopia has recognized this reality and is positioning itself to be both a military power and an industrial force. Ethiopia has taken a monumental step toward self-reliance by building a sustainable military industry, an achievement that sets it apart from many other African nations. This transformation changes everything. Now, Ethiopia can produce its own ammunition without waiting for permission from international powers. There's no need to spend millions on foreign arms contracts. or depend on unpredictable shipments from abroad. In times of crisis, the nation can keep its military well supplied without scrambling for external help. Very few African countries have reached this level of independence, but this is not just about preparing for conflict. Even during times of peace, Ethiopia's defense industry ensures that its armed forces remain well equipped without draining the national budget. Unlike countries that pour billions into military imports, Ethiopia is keeping its wealth circulating within its own economy, investing in its future instead of sending money overseas. If ammunition production continues to grow, Ethiopia might start forming military trade partnerships with neighboring countries. Imagine a network where African nations trade arms directly with each other, free from Western interference. Will the West try to interfere? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay updated with stories that inspire and challenge the status quo. Let's spread knowledge and spark change together. Thanks for watching.